We're talking today with Jay Gritt of Byron Center, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. All right, now Mr. Gritt, can you begin by giving us some background on yourself? To start with, where and when were you born?
I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan in March 16th, 1923.
All right, and what did your family do for a living at that time?
My father was a cabinet maker in the furniture business.
Mm-hmm. Now, was he able to keep that job in the 30s, or?
Well, as far as I can recall, he was a cabinet maker with the furniture companies in Grand Rapids for a long time, as long as I can remember, I can recall.
Okay, so when you were growing up and the Depression started and all of that, he was able to keep his job?
No, because I think his job might have been he might have been laid off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you lost your farm during the Depression, so I'm guessing he must have been laid off.
Okay, so he also had a farm then?
And we had a farm too. And my father bought a farm, and we went on the farm to live.
Mm-hmm.
And we lost the farm during the Depression.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, how long did you stay in school?
I graduated from Creston High School in Grand Rapids.
Okay, and then what year did you graduate?
1941.
All right. So just a little bit before Pearl Harbor then. So same year, but earlier that year?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, before Pearl Harbor happened, were you paying attention to what was going on in the world? Did you know there was a war in Europe and all that kind of thing?
I played around with I went around with a gang. Sports was sports, more or less, in the sports field.
Right. So you weren't worrying very much about all that stuff. What kind of sports did you play?
I think basketball and baseball.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, after you graduated from high school, did you go to work, or what did you do?
Well, I found a job. I had a job in a furniture factory for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a job on the railroad.
Okay. And what was the railroad job?
I was a laborer then at the railroad. And then from the railroad, I went into the Army.
All right. Now, did you get drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted.
All right. And when were you drafted?
Well, I can't tell you. It was on my birthday. I know that March 16th.
Oh, somebody's finding it. All right. Okay. All right. Let's see. What have we got here?
1943.
Yeah, we have you listed here as March 10, 1943.
Yeah.
Okay. So March of 1943 then.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Where's the telephone ringing at?
No? All right. Well, we'll let Patrick edit that part out. Okay. Anyway, so you get your draft notice in March then.
Yeah.
All right.
On March 16th, they called me up, and that was on my birthday.
Right. So that's when you went in to sign up and all that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, before that, had you considered enlisting?
No, I hadn't.
Was it that you didn't want to get in the war, or did you just figure they'd catch up with you?
Well, at that time was my father was on the farm, I believe, at that time, and he sort of kept me home to help him hay it and stuff.
Yeah, so you still had to help out the family
Yeah.
as best you could. All right. Now, when the draft notice came, where did you have to report to?
Elgin County.
All right. And what did you do when you got there? Just fill out papers, or?
Well, they just told me that I was going to be in the Army, and I had so many days before I had to report back to Elgin again.
Okay.
Then they put me in Camp Grant, Illinois.
Okay. They sent you over to Camp Grant, and what did you do at Camp Grant?
That was where they got me uniforms and everything.
All right.
They decorated me all up with the Army uniform.
And then where did they send you from there?
They sent me to Camp Butler, North Carolina.
All right. And
Oh, well, we went to Camp Grant, Illinois. Or
Right.
the give me a uniform and everything, and then I was transferred to Camp Butler, North Carolina, where I took my training.
Right. Okay. Now, can you describe the basic training experience? What were you doing?
Oh, well, the basic training was your basic training came with learn how to be a soldier. They gave me all my equipment. They had my uniform and stuff, and then we had the regular army training that you get for starting up as a soldier.
Okay. So you had to learn to follow orders and march and.
Learn how to march, so just take orders and
Okay. Now, did you do pretty well with all of that?
yes, I went through it good.
Well, you were probably in pretty good shape anyway, so you could do the marching. How about following orders and behaving
Oh
yourself?
yes, very good.
All right. Were there any of the guys who were training along with you who were getting into trouble or having problems?
No.
Okay.
We had a good crew of guys.
Okay. Now, were they from all over the country, or were okay?
They were from all over.
All right. Now, how long then did you spend there in basic training?
Oh boy. Well, basic training, I spent at the Camp Butler. I spent quite a long time there and there.
Okay. Well, did you do advanced infantry training there too, or okay? So you probably
Well,
probably several months then, all in a row.
Well, yeah, you over here, well over here.
Okay.
Probably, I don't know exactly how long, but quite long.
All right. Now, while you were there, was it always with the same group of guys?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It was an army training camp.
Mm-hmm.
It was a regular army post.
Right. Now, at this stage in the war, they were training a lot of men pretty quickly and shipping them out pretty quickly. Were you staying longer than some of the other guys?
I stayed there quite a while in Camp Butler. I don't know how long. I got furloughs from there to come home.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And did you also get any chance to kind of go off base or into town or anything like that?
Oh yes, we got passes into town.
Now, what town were you close to?
Durham and Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay. All right. And what was there to do when you went in town?
Well, we just had visiting, look the place over, and have Sundays and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
hamburgers, and like GI does,
Mm-hmm.
eat. That was one of the first things, you gotta eat.
Mm-hmm.
Like you eat. Like I always say, I have always ate more than earned.
All right. Now, what kinds of training were you getting then as you stayed on all that time?
Regular army training that you for combat training.
Okay. Now, were there particular weapons that you trained on?
Well, we trained a rifle. We had a rifle.
Mm-hmm. Did you also learn to use machine guns or carbines?
Yep.
Okay.
Light machine gun.
All right. And
Light caliber, air cooled, 30
30 caliber?
caliber machine gun.
Okay. And then what about automatic rifles? Did you use a Browning or?
Well, they trained us. They trained us on a Browning,
Okay.
but we had. But most of the time we used regular M1 rifle.
Right.
We started with the old 3, but
That's you. Ha.
you left the phone someplace.
All right. Okay. So you did a lot of rifle training. Now, but then why do you think you stayed in that camp so long?
Training for the war.
Right. But they were shipping a lot of guys out to be replacements by that time.
Yeah, but
Maybe not so many Army just yet. That's still
we
43.
I was in the division at that time, 78th Division.
Okay. That's why you're there nearly that
I
long.
was
That's
in
right.
the 78th Division.
Okay. So you're.
I trained in the 78th Lightning Division,
Mm-hmm.
but I was transferred into the 9th Division when I went
When you went overseas.
overseas.
Okay. All right. So that does make sense then, because a division would train together for a long time before they shipped out.
Yeah.
And so the 78th was in that cycle, and you were doing that.
Yeah.
All right. Now, did you have a specific assignment within your platoon or your squad? Or were you
At that time, I was a regular private.
regular private? Okay. Now,
Then
yeah.
I became a PFC, and I finally ended up as a sergeant.
Okay. Now, at the time that you left North Carolina, were you still a regular private or were you a PFC by then?
I was a PFC.
Okay. Now, when you left North Carolina, where did you go next?
Oh boy.
Did they send you to ship you out or did you train somewhere else?
No, they sent me to ship me out,
Okay.
and then I ended up with the 9th Infantry Division.
Okay. Well, when you were shipping out,
I was with the training. I trained with the 78th.
right, right. We got that. You're with the 78th. Now, then, when they send you overseas, what port did you sail out of? Did you go from Norfolk or
No,
New York?
Boston.
Boston. All right. You sail out of Boston. And what kind of ship were you in?
I thought it was a Kaiser Victory ship.
Mm-hmm. All right. And did you sail in a convoy? All right. And what kind?
Zigzags.
Yep. So you were zigzagging across. As far as you know, were there any submarine scares or submarine attacks while you were crossing?
There must have been one because one of the ships went inside is with the anchor hanging out the side to keep it straight.
Mm-hmm.
They let him go in there first. So I had to wait till he got in the harbor.
Mm-hmm. So he'd taken some kind of damage.
Yeah.
All right. Now, had you ever heard alarms or anything else like that while you were crossing? Like anything warning you that you might be under
I
attack?
can't remember anymore.
Okay.
We always had drills though,
Mhm.
like the emergency drills in case you had emergencies.
Right. And what would you do in an emergency drill?
Well, it made you to get off on board and get down in your bunk.
Okay. But not everybody up on deck to abandon ship, but just get out of the way.
To get out of you don't stay on top of the ship when you got trouble like that. You gotta
Right. Get under, down
get
below.
under, yeah.
Okay. Now, what was the weather like when you were crossing the ocean?
We had some stormy weather in the northern around the coast of Greenland.
Mm-hmm. All right. And did people get sick? Was it a mess?
Oh man, a lot of them sick.
All right. Now,
We had one staff sergeant there that was terrible sick
and was he sick the whole way over? Mm-hmm.
all the way.
Yep. How long did the trip take, do you think?
I thought it took us about, was it 14 days? Something
That's
like
about
that?
right. Yeah. And then where did they land you? Did you land in Scotland or in England?
Glasgow.
Glasgow. Okay. And then when you got off at Glasgow, then where did you go?
Well, they shipped us down through to Wales, somewhere in Wales.
Okay. Now, were you still with the 78th Division at this
Wrexham,
time?
Wales. Wrexham, Wales.
Okay. And were you still with the 78th Division so far?
No, it was
You were now a replacement now?
it was a replacement then.
Okay. And when were you designated a replacement? Was that after you got over the
Now,
ocean?
when we left the United States, we was a replacement.
Okay.
We was in the replacement group.
All right. So so at what point then do you actually get switched out of the 78th Division? Were you still in North Carolina and you got new orders, or was that when you got up to Boston?
Now you got me. I don't know.
Okay. But somewhere in that process, they decide they need more replacements for the 9th
Yeah.
Division.
Yeah, well, they took a bunch of fellows as replacements
Mhm.
who were no longer. Imagine we were no longer in the
In 78th, yeah.
78th, and it must have been a replacement from the 78th.
Right, right. Okay. Now, when you got down to the camp in Wales, did you join the 9th Division, or were you just going to a replacement depot?
I had a replacement team, and then when we ship, I didn't get into the 9th Division until I got went out to get into combat.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, do you remember when you got over the ocean, when you crossed the ocean? Because you go into the Army in 43, and you say you were in training for about a year. Did you cross the ocean before or after D-Day? Had we already invaded Europe by the time you got there?
No, the invasion was after I was there.
Okay. Now, do
The
you...
invasion plane went overhead.
Mhm.
I watched them go overhead, all of them.
All right. What kind of planes did you see go overhead? Were they bombers?
All fighters and bombers both.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you knew something was going on.
Yeah, we knew what was going on.
All right. Now, how...
Invasion was going on. We knew that the invasion was taking place. It was just roar, just constant roar overhead.
Right. Now, once that happened, how much longer was it before they sent you across the channel?
Well, that time is something I forget.
Let's see. God,
I've forgotten an awful lot since then.
that happens.
Your teeth were getting pulled then, Dad.
What?
Your teeth were getting pulled, so that's why you didn't have to go.
Well, my teeth was bad, and the dentist said I couldn't go into combat with the teeth.
Yeah.
All right. So do they have to pull your teeth, or how many?
No, not pull. They had to
Just
fill them.
Fill them. Okay. Not
Take
quite
care
so
of 'em.
bad. All right.
Couldn't go to combat with teeth like that.
All right. Your written account says you joined your unit in the 9th Division on the 6th of September, 1944. All right. How did they get you across the English Channel?
On a boat.
Okay. Remember what kind of boat it was? Was it a landing craft
It was a
or?
British boat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the name of it was. There was a British boat that we went across.
Okay.
On a British boat, we went across the channel and that.
And do you remember where you landed?
We had to go down off the ropes on the ship and go in the landing crafts, infantry crafts.
Right. So did you land on Omaha Beach then, maybe? Because they landed a lot of Americans on the
Omaha was where we landed.
Okay. Now, when you landed there, were there any signs left of the battle that was fought a few months earlier?
They had been, places had been wrecked, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We could see that, you know.
Mhm.
But
Now, were there any wrecked ships or things like that around, or were they gone? You saw.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
Them-
So you just saw maybe what was left of the German bunkers or houses that had been
Yeah.
damaged, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Stuff, it's
All right.
the damaged
Right.
places was there.
Okay. And then how did they get you across France?
The 6-foot truck,
Okay.
an army truck, sit on, picked us up right off the beachhead. We come in and on the beach and
So you just load right up on trucks and they just take you on across.
Yeah, loaded us right on trucks and took us up to toward the division where we were going to be with
Right. Okay. Now,
as a replacement of that division.
right. Okay. So you joined. Okay. Now, do you remember where the 9th Division was at the time that you joined it?
Boy, no.
Now, were they in northern France, around Metz, or were they up in Belgium, or do you have any sense of where you were at that point? Now, what it does say is that you do join the unit when it goes into the Hurtgen Forest.
That was the worst battle we ever was in.
All right. And I guess the way in your written account it says here that you joined your unit September 6th. The first action that you saw was September 8th. The Hurtgen Forest was about a month later. Now, do you remember the first time you... First of all, do you remember joining your company and your platoon? Getting to the 9th Division? And meeting the people you were joining?
Can't really remember it.
Okay. So you bump across northern France in a truck, and then you get off, and you join a unit. Do you remember anything about the first time that you went into action? Because they say within a couple of days you were already moving forward.
I know that it wasn't. We went right up there. We went right up the front line.
Mhm.
They dumped us off, and we was at the front lines. Is what we was.
Right. And so you joined the unit when it was kind of up in the front lines?
Mhm.
All right. And do you remember anything about what the place looked like when you got there? Or were you in foxholes or out in the open or in a town?
That I can't remember.
Okay.
My,
All right. Now, did they then move you someplace else after you joined the unit? Did you get on trucks and go somewhere else?
well, after we got there, we was there. We was in a war zone.
Okay. And were you attacking the enemy, or were you waiting for them, or what was happening?
When we got there, we got in. Well, it told us in. He had to get acquainted with the company, you know.
Right, right.
And then that was the first thing. And
Were there a lot of you joining the company at the same time?
it was about maybe. The replacements was about. Well, maybe it was a half a dozen of us or so,
Okay.
or 20
Okay,
or something. Not over 20 at the most.
all right,
It was a group of. They replaced us in the company.
right. Okay, and then were there, when you joined the company, did anybody try to tell you a little bit about what you were doing or how to do things?
Well, imagine the sergeant was telling you, give me orders.
Mhm.
Was one of those orders that you just moved to what he said. What he said you did.
Okay. Because one of the things that happened a lot in the war was that often new replacements would join a unit and most guys wouldn't talk to them because they figured they were going to get killed right away. And a lot of replacements, when they went into action, they got hit pretty quickly. Did anybody give you any advice on what to do when you came under fire or things like that? Or
Not too much.
Okay.
You had to figure it out yourself.
Mm-hmm. And if you did figure it out, then you're kind of one of them.
Just like you said, they were sort of. You was something to draw fire.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, do you remember kind of first time you actually kind of went into action, or you realized somebody was shooting at you? Is that?
Well, some of the guys was pretty good about it, and gave you a little
advice or warning?
little advice. Yeah.
Okay.
Generally, got most of your advice from your sergeant.
Right. Okay.
He wanted to live too, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, at this time when you're joining the unit, were you trying to move forward and to attack the Germans, or were you standing in the
You were
line?
probably were in, you were told to keep your head down, what to try and much as you could. The sergeant would tell you just exactly what you have to move to make, because he wanted to save his neck too.
Right.
And it was all of us. It was working together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, did you get to know the guys in the platoon you were in?
Yeah, they started. They introduced you as a couple of them. You became buddies, and
Okay, so you do kind of connect with that group when you join that group.
you
All right.
connect
All
pretty
right.
good.
Now, was the fight in the Hurtgen Forest? Was that really the first serious
That was
fight you had?
some of the worst battles we had.
What can you tell us about what it was like to be there? What was going on?
Well, the forest was a thick fir tree forest,
Mm-hmm.
and it was real thick and dark. It was close together. It had fire lanes in it. And all these fire lanes were zeroed in.
Mm-hmm.
Germans had them all zeroed in with their tank 88s, all our 88 artillery
Mm-hmm.
guns off their tank gun and everything. Had these fire lanes through the forests, all zeroed in. So whenever they'd see a guy crossing, bang, they'd leave a shell go
Mm-hmm.
in that area.
Now, did they use a lot of artillery against you? Kind of bombardment from above too? All right.
And a lot of it hitting the treetops and just rained down on it.
Mm-hmm. Now, what could you do to protect yourself or to take cover?
Well, the only thing was, as quick as you could get a foxhole, and then put a log roof over the top and sand on top of it.
All right. Now, when you were up there doing that, did the German infantry come and attack you as well?
Well, you try to get in there, sneak in there, even in the dark, and dig your foxhole, and make your foxhole and your in undercover. See,
Mhm.
so they wouldn't see you.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know you were exactly there, exactly where he was.
So would they just maybe go right past you?
Well, they didn't go past you because you had enough people around you. They had to come and run into somebody before they run into you.
Okay. Now, what kind of duties did you have at this point? Were you just a regular rifleman manning the line still? Okay. Now, were there times?
Yeah, I was only a PFC when I first came in there, and then as I was then I became a sergeant.
Okay. Now, when did you become a sergeant?
Oh, I don't know.
Was that a lot later?
Not too much later,
Okay.
because they lost. Well, it wasn't too much later. He was a sergeant because they was a dime a dozen, you know.
Were the other sergeants getting hit pretty quickly, and so they needed to promote men? And if you were still alive, then
Yeah, you became sergeant way. You gotta stand up and be counted.
mm-hmm.
And then
So-
then you were bait for. It wasn't the easiest job, I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, at the point when you became sergeant, how many men were you in charge of?
Well, it's usually a squad is about 12 or 15 men.
And would the squad sometimes get a lot smaller than that when you were fighting?
Well, yeah, it could be down to 3 or 4 men.
Okay. Now,
They keep on replacement as fast as you can get them replacements. They'd be coming up right along, new men every day.
and was it your job to try to prepare the new men to fight or to try to help them if you could?
Well, yeah,
And what could you tell them that might help them?
one thing is keep your head down. Don't put yourself out for as a target. Try and camouflage yourself as much as you can.
Now, when you were fighting there in the Hurtgen Forest, did you have problems getting food or fresh water or things like that?
Well, they brought it up. They had the crews from the kitchen gang would have to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Bring up the food.
And when would they bring it up? Would they bring it at night?
Well, they brought up C rations or K rations. The rations for it.
Right.
And then they'd bring it up so far, and then they'd have to And then somebody else would bring it up to us.
Mm-hmm.
See? The kitchen crew would bring it up to the front, toward the front, and
Mm-hmm.
and we'd have to go back and get some. A lot of the guys would have to go back and get it.
Mm-hmm.
Your rations.
Right. Okay. And did you have enough fresh water, or was that a problem?
Water, you gotta get a canteen. You had to get water. I don't know how I got water anymore. I don't remember. I know that my canteen. Well, I had kept plenty of water in my canteen. I don't know how I got it, but
Okay. Now,
they
what?
found ways to do it.
Okay. Now, what kind of weather did you have when you were in the forest? Was it getting cold then?
Well, it got cold. It was plenty cold there.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta see my division history book.
And did the men have problems just keeping clean or keeping their feet okay or that kind of thing, or?
Yeah, a lot of them with blue feet.
Mm-hmm.
What they call trench foot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, was it wet in the foxholes too? Was it?
Well, it's cool. It got where the moisture was, it would freeze. So you got ice on
Right.
the side walls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have a sense of how long you actually spent in the Hurtgen Forest before they pulled you out?
No, it's been a long time in it.
I think a few weeks or.
Well, all we had to go through it, you know. And then
Mm-hmm.
by the time you didn't know the Germans were there, and and they didn't know where we were.
Mm-hmm.
So
All right.
before you knew it, you run into them.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now.
That was a hard fight.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the hardest fights of the war, according to
It was.
most accounts. Very tough fighting. All right. Now, did you see much of the Germans at all, either alive or dead?
What?
Did you see much of the Germans when you were in there, either alive or dead?
Oh, I see a lot of Germans.
Mm-hmm. And,
I could see them sometimes running around with American cars, Jeeps too, as they overrun the 99th Division.
okay, well, that's going to be a little bit later. That's going to be Battle of the Bulge period
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
I actually was asking first of all, but just
Yeah.
while you were still in the Hurtgen Forest.
yeah.
Could you see much of your enemy when you were in the forest?
Not too much, because that forest was awful thick.
Now, in your memoir here, you mentioned seeing, I think, the body of a dead German officer that was like in the same
Yeah.
place for.
I laid in front of my tent. Boy, and he smelled.
Mm-hmm. But nobody moved him or did anything about him?
And then they couldn't come and get him out of there, and I wouldn't move him.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't dare to get out there and get him because somebody'd shoot me.
Right.
As far as I was concerned, he was there dead and he laid there.
Mm-hmm.
For how long after I left there, the place he was still laying there when I left.
All right. Now, once you finished fighting in the Hurtgen Forest, do they pull you out of the line at some point? All right. And then once they did that, how long?
Put you in a reserve area.
Right.
I don't know how long. For a while until you got replacements.
Mm-hmm.
They'd bring your outfit, pull it right off the line and back in an area, in a reserve area, and
Right.
then refill your up with replacements. See, all new replacements.
Right. And then once they had rebuilt the division again after fighting in the Hurtgen
And then
Forest.
they put you back up the front lines again.
Okay. And did they send you back to the Hurtgen Forest, or did they send you down?
Wherever they needed you.
Okay. And where did they wind up needing you then?
What?
Well, then is that the point when then they send you in and you try to help the 99th Division?
Oh, you were with the division. You were with the division already then.
Right.
Different division. You were the division you was in.
Right.
Probably was the 9th Division.
Yeah, well, you were in the 9th Division
Yeah.
because the 9th Division's pulled out together. But into kind of following the history of that unit,
Yeah.
it looks like the next place they go is into the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
All right. and they're coming in on kind of the north end of the Bulge, around Elsenborn Ridge and Monschau and places like that. And you mentioned the 99th Division.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, the 99th was the one that got slaughtered. They replaced us.
mhm,
And the minute they replaced us, the Germans knew that a new division had come in.
mhm,
That's why they hit them.
okay. And then did you have to go back in and help them at
I
that
don't
point?
know. We didn't do it. We didn't go back where the 99th was. No.
Mm-hmm.
But they must have had some other division come in and take 99th's place.
Because you mentioned seeing Germans using American Jeeps and things like that.
Yes, I saw them go into a town with an American Jeep, German.
All right. And was that at the time of the Battle of the Bulge, or was that earlier or later? Because they were doing that at the time of the Bulge.
I know they were doing that. They were doing it because they had taken 99th Jeeps because they hadn't got too far. They went down below us.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the hills up on the
Mm-hmm.
hills along the river, and the Germans took the road was good. They run down there. And they were in the Jeep in 99th Division on the front bumper, insignia and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay. So basically what you saw was sort of a product of what happened to the 99th.
that's right.
Yeah, okay.
That's what we saw what happened in the 99th.
All right. Now, were they trying to fool you by using an American Jeep, or were
No,
they were just
no.
using it because they had it?
They were using it because they had it there and they could they had an extra Jeep that they could run around in. See.
Right. All right. Now, in the period of the Battle of the Bulge, the 9th Division is sort of occupying mostly defensive positions for a while. So you're getting to December of 44, January of 45. Did you mostly just kind of stay on the line, or?
We mostly stayed about where we were.
Now, did you ever get chances to get off the line and go back to the rear? Did they rotate men back and forth within the unit, or did you just stay up on the front?
Well, they moved the whole unit back. When they moved it back, they moved the unit. Another unit come in and took your place.
Now, but you were still in December and January. You were probably spending a lot of time camped outside. You were living outdoors.
Yeah.
All right.
This time it was
And how cold? Did it get even colder than before?
blooming cold. It was blooming cold.
Did a lot of men get frostbite?
They had their feet got blue and they got trench foot. Bad.
But did they get frostbite on top of that? Or?
Yeah, they got frostbite too.
Okay. Now, did you have any problems with frostbite or
No,
the
I
trench
didn't.
foot?
Because they used to give us canned heat.
Mm-hmm.
I used that canned heat to heat my socks and dry my socks out. And I kept dry socks on my feet.
Right. Now, did you teach your men to do that too?
I told them they ought to do it if they did. And they did. Some of them did it. Some of them was brave enough to try not to, and they ended up with sore feet.
Okay. Now, could you tell what the morale of the men was like at that point? And were they doing okay and holding up okay, or were they pretty unhappy with where they were?
They were bitching about all the time they had to be up there in the front lines.
All right. Now, while you're up there, did you see much of any aircraft being used, either American aircraft or German aircraft?
They had lots of times they had American artillery observing plane would go across sky and
Right.
was observing targets for them to
Yeah, for the artillery to bombard, right?
artillery to hit, calling artillery fire on them.
Right. But did you see any fighters or bombers overhead?
Oh, quite a few times when fires was patrolling the sky overhead.
Mm-hmm. And did you get any support from the Air Force? I mean, did you
No,
get,
and the not as low as young as we was.
mm-hmm.
Usually our colonel or brigadier general would get the information, and
Mm-hmm.
he'd send it back down through the chain of commands.
Mm-hmm. But did you see any of your own aircraft trying to help you? I mean, attacking the Germans in front of you or anything like that?
Oh, I saw when we was in combat. I seen the Thunderbolts come in there and dive bomb
Mm-hmm.
on targets that we'd call
Right.
them, and they'd come and dive bomb on them with
Yeah, the P-47s. Yeah.
P-47 Thunderbolts.
Mm-hmm. Now, did the Thunderbolts also use rockets or just bombs at that point, or machine
We
guns?
didn't have rockets and just used bombs,
Okay.
500-pound bombs usually.
All right. Now, as the war goes on a little bit and the Germans are defeated in the Bulge, Americans all start pushing forward early in 1945. And they're going to go into the Rhineland area. And your unit moved in the direction of the Remagen Bridge.
You
Okay.
bet we did.
Now, what do you remember about that?
Oh, we made it an awful big march.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was about a 31-mile march. I got about to get to Remagen,
Mm-hmm.
that bridge. And I remember the bridge. It had a lot of holes in it.
Mm-hmm. And did you cross on the bridge?
Yes, we did.
Okay, now how did you get across with all the holes and stuff?
Bypass the holes.
Mm-hmm.
Keep from falling through holes right through the bridge.
Now, as you were crossing, were you being fired upon? Was
We
it
crossed at night.
okay? And how much was it? Do you know when you crossed in terms of how long the Americans had been at the bridge? Did you cross the
Well,
same?
somebody else crossed it before we did.
Right.
We weren't the first ones to cross it.
Right. But did you cross it like the same day or the next day or?
Yeah, within the period of a day.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all crossed it through.
Right. And then once you got across, then where did you go?
Then we fought like ever to keep from getting pushed back into the river.
Mm-hmm. And what were the Germans attacking you with? Do they have tanks or just infantry or?
Mostly infantry men was
Mm-hmm.
there, and they had some tanks up there, but they was using them for artillery.
Mm-hmm.
The 88s was
Right.
artillery shells was our main worry there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, did you feel like you were in danger of being pushed back or overrun at that point?
We felt like we could get shoved back in the river
Mm-hmm.
if we didn't fight, so we had to stand and fight.
Okay. And then did you get help? Did you get reinforcements while you were doing
Well,
that?
as much as they could get across.
Mm-hmm. Now, could they?
kept moving.
Right. Now, could they get any tanks across yet, or was it just infantry?
Just infantry was across first.
Mm-hmm. All right. And about how long do you think that fight lasted? So maybe a couple hours, or a day, or 2 days?
Oh, I think it was a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had a old position there at nights.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, after that position was secure, do you go forward again? Do you start attacking?
Kept moving, we got more people across the river, and then we kept on moving.
Mm-hmm. Now, as you got into Germany and you're moving farther forward, how did what you saw, like the countryside and stuff, was that the same as what you'd been going through, or did Germany look different to you? Were there more towns or more houses that weren't blown up yet, or what did you see as you went into Germany?
Well, half the time we didn't know whether it was in Germany or where it was at.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know whether it was in Germany or in
Belgium,
Belgium.
right. Okay. But of course, once you crossed at Remagen, I mean, you were in Germany.
Yeah.
And you could tell. Now, in general, while you had been fighting and so forth, or while you'd been in Belgium or France or Germany, had you seen much of any of the civilian population? Were there ever people around?
No, they try to keep themselves on very, very low in the war zone.
Mm-hmm.
She's seen a few of them, but not many.
Okay. When your unit was pulled off the line and you were in reserve, did you see many?
We weren't allowed to talk to them at all.
Okay. Right.
No fraternization.
Mm-hmm.
That was the law.
All right. Now, once you got across at Remagen and you defended the bridgehead and you could move forward again, did the campaign get any easier? Did the Germans keep fighting as hard as before?
Harder.
Harder.
Of course, the closer you got to Germany, the harder they fought.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't want you. They don't want us in their homeland.
Right. Okay. Now, after Remagen, do you remember where you went? What towns?
No, I don't remember
Okay.
exactly.
I'll just see here what we've got for that. Okay. You do mention here, let's see. A place where you saw, maybe March or April of 45, you saw a German plane crash near your position.
Yeah, there was one that crashed there.
Can you tell us what happened then, or what you saw?
Well, a lot of us run over there to see what happened to the pilot in the plane. But
Mhm.
there was a lieutenant there that happened to be there too, and he grabbed the first thing he grabbed was the leather jacket off of the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted that leather jacket to wear around.
Now, was the pilot alive or dead?
Well, he was dead.
Okay. Now, did you see the plane go down?
I don't think I did. I know it crashed.
Okay. All right.
But it might have crashed. I'm not sure whether it crashed when it went down when I saw it down.
Mm-hmm.
But it must. I must have seen it. That it crashed down because it come down.
Great. Okay. Now you mentioned here another thing. We got around Easter of 1945. You were hiding in a house, and there were Germans attacking you, trying to break out of the rear pocket area. Do you remember anything about that?
I'm trying to.
So you hid 14 men at a house for 10
Yeah.
to 12 hours?
Yeah. Yeah, that's when I put men in the potato bins downstairs, throw the bags over the top of them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and we went upstairs and when I run down through the rafters and the roof of the barn, run the rafters down, and I could, where the slate was, the tile was knocked out of the roof of the barn, I could see holes. I could see the Germans in the street.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I. But then I was awful careful. I didn't make any movements so they could see me.
So you and your men just kind of hid there, and the Germans went past.
We hid there all day.
Yeah. Now, did the Germans retreat or go away after that?
They did. Yeah, they moved on out.
Mm-hmm. And then when you rejoined the rest of your unit, did they think you'd been lost? Or?
Well, our unit didn't come in there. The 47th Regiment from our division
Mm-hmm.
came in there, and when they came in there, I knew that our men had come in back in there.
Mm-hmm.
Then realized that Americans was back in the town. They had moved out, so then I come down, my men come down. Our colonel come up there with his jeep and said, "Now don't go making yourself too much to eat down. We still got lots of fighting to be done here yet." So,
And was he right? Did you still have a lot more fighting to do?
was he right?
Yeah.
He said that out of my men that was left, that was hidden in that building there, he said, take these men and go up to that town up there and see what's left in that town up there.
Mm-hmm. And
So we were right back in the fight again.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you find anybody in the next town?
No,
Okay.
they was gone.
They had gone away by then. Okay. Now, did that get more common there in the last few weeks of the war? You could go forward and not get shot at anymore? Or did it stay bad the whole time?
Well, no, there's a time where you could move in the town and Germans had evacuated it.
Mm-hmm.
But the just civilians left in there. And when they was afraid of the Americans, it was pathetic.
How could you tell they were afraid of you? What did they do?
And they didn't say nothing. They just held back and didn't say nothing to nobody.
All right. Now,
You could tell they was afraid of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, did that change over time? Did they eventually figure?
Oh yeah, after a little while, they knew that they wasn't gonna.
They weren't going to get
They
hurt.
wasn't gonna get hurt.
Right. Okay. Now, how far did your unit advance into Germany? Where did you get to by the end of the war? Did you meet the Russians or get that far? Or?
No, we met the Russians on the Elbe River.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, did you see any of the Russian soldiers yourself?
Yeah, we stopped a bunch of them trying coming through coming through and gonna run through the American lines on there with the car, and they were gonna try to run through the run. I ordered them to shoot the front tires out, and they shot the front tires out, and the car couldn't run good.
Mm-hmm.
So the Russians were mad, and happened to be that I had a man in my squad that could speak a little Russian, Dave Tillip.
Mm-hmm.
So Dave says to him, ask him what they were doing over there, and he talked to them and told them, you better get back over your own lines and stay over there and don't go back over here. He said, no. He said, because you can get yourself into trouble over here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they backed the car up. They put they fixed a tire, I guess, or put the spare on it and drove it back out.
Now, did they ever
Didn't
tell?
see him no more.
Did they tell you why they were there?
No.
They were just out for a joyride.
Joyriding.
All right. Now, did you stay along the Elbe River there when the war ended, or did you go someplace else?
No, the war didn't end there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, where the war ended, I don't know just exactly, but where we ended the war was, we was in some city, but I don't know what city was it where the war ended.
Now, were you still in Germany? Or
Yeah, we were in Germany then.
Okay. All right. Now, at the end of the war there, did you see any of the prisoner of war camps or the concentration camps at all?
Well, I never went through them myself. I heard of them, but I did know I went through Nordhausen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the pits, or they had the pits of these bodies with all these pits in these dead people, and they're buried in these pits. They covered them up with they hadn't had them all covered up yet with bulldozers, they bulldoze holes in the ground about 6 foot deep and just laid them in like cordwood in the
Mm-hmm.
bodies of people that they'd. So
Mm-hmm.
that was.
Okay. Now, how long did you stay? How long did you stay in Germany then after the war ended?
No, I was in the Army of Occupation for 6 months.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of duties did you have then? What was your job?
Just like police force, just like American police force.
Mm-hmm. And were you?
I had men underneath me, and I had 3 jeeps and men underneath me, and we patrolled these counties with the Pfaffenhofen, Germany, and they call it the Pfaffenhofen Kreis, or Kreisis, or county, in other words.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
Yeah. What was the countryside like there?
was a lot like America.
You had a lot of farms and things like that. Okay. And did you get to know any of the people at all then? Could you now talk to them a little bit?
No, we're not fraternized with them.
Okay, so that's still going on. Now, were you mostly policing the American soldiers, or were you policing everybody?
We run the army just like we do in America here, and the people are, we just let them more or less go themselves the way, so that they wouldn't be hurt, you know. Nobody got hurt.
Right.
They got used to it pretty soon. They knew just about how far they could go, and it went all right.
Did any of the Germans cause you any trouble? And yet you didn't know?
I never had any trouble with them.
Okay. All right. Now, were you counting down until you could get to go home? Were you keeping track of your points and things like that? Or?
Well, yeah, we had point system, but I had not much time in the army, so before I went over there, so my points were real low. I had to stand there for 6 months after the war was over in order to get points enough to raised up enough to go home.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then, so when did they let you go home?
Oh, after I got my points raised up to where it was, so about the only time I got home was my points was enough to get to go home. I don't remember just exactly no more.
Okay. Well, it says you're discharged in January of 46, so
Yeah.
probably late in 45 they let you go home.
Yeah.
One other thing here, did you ever get wounded in combat?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you describe what happened to you or what you remember
Well,
about that?
When I was up there during the Battle of Bulge, a mortar shell hit up there about maybe I can't say just how far it was, but it was one of these mortar shells that they made especially just for this.
Mm-hmm.
A high concussion mortar shell with no shrapnel on them.
Okay.
Just concussion.
Mm-hmm. And did it give you a concussion?
Yeah.
Okay. Did it knock you out?
Well, it lined over there far enough to blow me up against a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I raked the side branches right off the branch there, and I hit the base of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
That's what caused me to get a Purple Heart and a wound in this leg here.
And how long were you out of action?
I was out of action for 3 days. They laid me up by the mess tent.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no shrapnel in me because of this high concussion shell.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the German did that on purpose
Mm-hmm.
because it took 2 men to move me back, and I was the 3rd one. So
Mm-hmm.
it took 3 men off the front lines.
Mm-hmm. But did you get much medical treatment, or did they just sit around and wait for you to feel better?
They brought me back to the fellows that were with me. Two were with me. Brought me back to what they call a mess tent.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, where they made the meals,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't no shrapnel wounds or nothing. So, and I had none. So when I woke up, I was woken by the kitchen tent.
But were there any medics around, or?
The medics, there was no shrapnel wounds on me, so the medics couldn't do much with me.
Mm-hmm.
Just up and let me lay there, and they made my bed and stuff outside the kitchen tent, and
At this point,
at that point, the medics couldn't do much more to it.
we had stopped the first tape. You were just talking a little bit about sort of what happened to you after you were wounded. And basically the situation was one in which they didn't know what to do for you because there weren't really a lot of wounds to treat except for maybe cutting your leg. Did the tree branches cut your leg or anything like that?
Well, more or less, my back hurt me bad,
Mm-hmm.
so I couldn't walk. So
Right.
they dragged me back to put me back by the tent.
Mm-hmm. Now, could you walk again after a few days? Were you able to walk around and get around after that?
When they put me up to walk, but when I got back up to my company again,
Mm-hmm.
my company commander was understanding,
Mm-hmm.
and he said to me, Jake, he said, "You don't look to me like you could even walk good." He said, "I'm going to put you back up with the up in the front and observe for the mortar group and
Mm-hmm.
call in the mortar fire."
Okay.
So that's what I did after that, and it made it. So I didn't have to walk or actually.
So
I carried it instead of a big M1 rifle. My table of organization called for a carbine,
Mm-hmm.
so I had a carbine that I carried
Right.
the
and
rest of the time.
Yeah, and that wasn't as heavy.
It
So
wasn't yours heavy.
now,
Yours
when
big.
when you were calling in the mortar fire, how did you do that? Did you have a radio or something?
Yeah, I had one little
Like a walkie-talkie kind of thing?
walkie-talkie.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how well did that work?
Well, I worked for the distance between myself and
And the mortar crew.
the mortar crew.
Okay. And about how far ahead of them would you normally be?
Oh, maybe not over a mile, not even
Okay.
a mile, about
Okay.
that.
All right.
So I'd talk to them, tell them, give them the range. And
Mm-hmm.
most of it's less than a mile.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Just go to foot,
Yeah.
so many feet.
Now, did you have to go out in front of your own lines to do that observation?
Oh, that's right, you have to.
Mm-hmm.
You're up there with the lieutenant up in the front line, right up in the front.
Mm-hmm. Now, was that a dangerous spot?
Oh, terrible dangerous.
Were the Germans trying to figure out where you were, or just?
Well, they tried to pick up my radio.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's why I hated to use that radio. Just put in my call just there and then shut it off right away.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't try and pick it up as quick as they could.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, how long did you spend doing that? Did you spend the rest of the war doing that?
Put in the rest of the war.
All right. That kind of made it that much more dangerous a business. All right.
You know, I was in a dangerous position.
But they didn't manage to hit you?
I was fortunate. The Lord blessed me.
Did you try to keep your radio calls as short as possible?
As short as I caused, as quick as I could, I shut it off.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, when the mortars fired, would you have to call back in and correct the fire, or tell them if they hit or they missed, or?
Yeah. If I just call back and say, advance so many feet,
Mm-hmm.
so many, and fire for effect.
Right. Okay.
And that's all.
Mm-hmm.
And no more.
All right. Now, did you mostly just call in fire against infantry targets, or did you attack gun positions, or when you were calling in targets?
Mostly I call in when we run into a machine gun emplacement.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't get by them,
Right.
so I'd call in to give them the estimated footage from the mortars, and
Right.
they'd fire 1 or 2 rounds, and I'd call in fire for or add one more.
Mm-hmm.
Or 300 feet, say 400 feet more,
Mm-hmm.
and then fire for effect.
Now, could you ever see the results of the firing? I mean, did you go past positions that you had hit?
Because I could see the position where I was.
Mm-hmm.
I could see where the shells were landing
Mm-hmm.
overhead there. So I did smash a few of those Germans up with a little bit with mortar shells.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I got even with some of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, when we were switching tapes, you were talking a little bit about the point when you had been in the line before the Battle of the Bulge, and the 99th Division came up and replaced you. And the 99th was a brand new unit. So what did you see when these guys came forward, or what did they look like? Because you mentioned there was one lieutenant you saw. What was he doing? In the 99th Division.
The 99th Division, when they come out to relieve us,
I'm sorry, I got some medication he has to take.
Okay, we can pause
Is that
this.
okay?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to stop the camera here so you can come in. Okay, we were talking about your friend from the 99th Division. A lieutenant comes up with his unit up toward your position. What was he doing, or what was he carrying?
what thing was referring to?
I think you mentioned there was a brand new lieutenant coming up with the 99th Division.
Oh, with the 90th. Oh, he has bedroll.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was going to take his bedroll up into combat. I asked him what he was going to do with that bedroll.
Mm-hmm.
I said, in combat, you better leave that back here where it belongs. I said, you don't need no bedroll up there, you need a foxhole.
Mm-hmm. And what was his response to that?
Well, he said, I said, you know, you can't put a bedroll in a foxhole.
Mm-hmm. And did he listen to you?
He did.
Well, good. Were his men bringing their
I
bedroll?
said, are you sure? I'm sure that you won't be able to put one of those in the foxhole, because you put a foxhole in, what you do is you'll have to cut trees down, put the logs of the tree over the top of the foxhole to keep the shrapnel from raking down as it hits the treetops
Mm-hmm.
and explodes. It rains shrapnel down on top of you, so you won't be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put logs on top of your foxhole, and then put the sand on top of that you dig out of your foxhole
Mm-hmm.
on top of the logs, to stop the shrapnel
Mm-hmm.
from coming through and hitting you.
Right. And not much room for a bedroll and all of that.
No room for a bedroll in there.
Yeah. All right. Now, are there particular things that you remember happening to you? If you think back to that time that you spent there over in Europe, are there particular events or incidents that kind of come back to your head that you haven't mentioned here yet? They might be funny things or serious things.
Well, I probably told you about the woman that had this rooster. I
No.
robbed the rooster out of her pen, and I said, "Men, we're going to have chicken for supper." So
Mm-hmm.
we got a pan of the cupboard, one of the cupboards in there, and it was in this little town.
Mm-hmm.
I stole her rooster. She was mad.
Mm-hmm.
I chopped his head off, and we butchered the rooster, and we had chicken for supper.
Mhm.
Man, oh man, was that woman mad.
Was that in Germany?
I think it was Germany.
Mm-hmm. All right. Was that the sort of the first time you'd had anything like fresh meat in a
Oh, it was
long
the
time?
first time we had that since I left home.
Mm-hmm. About that bad. All right. Any other stories like that around, or things that?
Well, that's the humorous part of
Mm-hmm.
it. Guys was wondering what that woman was hollering, shaking her fist and hollering in German, see?
Mm-hmm.
About a rooster that was stolen, killed and eaten.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, over the course of the time when your unit was in action, did you lose a lot of the men in your company?
Well, you lost some. It's all according to what kind of action you had during the day.
Mm-hmm.
One day you'd have real bad casualties, and the next day you didn't have none.
Mm-hmm.
It's all according to what kind of action was the Germans fight they put up the day before.
Right.
So I can't tell you. You don't. It didn't all come up
Right.
routine each day the same. No.
Okay.
Every day was different.
Right. Now, when the war ended, did you have a sense of what proportion?
Things slowed down toward the end of the war. Slowed down casualties, everything
Right.
else slowed down.
Right.
The Germans slowed down their action, their type of action. It all slowed down. Mm.
Now, by the time the war ended, were you one of the old guys in your company?
I was the oldest man in the company.
Mm-hmm. And did you have more experience than pretty much anybody?
Even in the officers.
Mm-hmm.
More experience than a lot of the officers.
Mm-hmm.
Just as I was fortunate that I didn't get my number wasn't up yet.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, when your points number was finally up, at the end of 45, when they tell you can go home, how did you get home?
So it was just about like they got in. They took the point, the men, the same number of points that I had.
Mm-hmm.
They all rolled them together and put them in just like rotating us back home, just like they brought us over there.
Mm-hmm. And did they
In
put you
groups.
Did they put you in trucks to send you over?
Put us in trucks and took us down. We took it down and I don't know what town it was. Anyway, took us down to I don't know the Omaha Beachhead, I think it was, and they shipped us out in a boat back to England, British boat back in England.
Mm-hmm.
And
And was was the trip back to the States, or the trip to, you went on a boat to England and then
Yeah,
from England to the States?
yeah. We didn't go right back to the States in England.
Okay.
They went to, I don't know just exactly where we went in England,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know exactly how it turned out, but anyway, we rotated back the same as we came.
Mm-hmm. Now, was the trip back across the ocean any better than the trip over? Was the weather any better?
Well, we went in a better ship.
Okay.
We didn't go on a little Courage and Victory ship. We went on a regular transport ship
Mm-hmm.
across the big one.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't near as rocky top.
Mm-hmm. And was it also faster because you could just go
Yeah,
straight?
it was a faster boat too. So we had a better trip home when we'd gone over there.
Now, do you remember where you were on Christmas of 1945?
We weren't it's Christmas.
Were you on a
45.
boat or in England or?
Boy, I don't remember.
Okay. Because I noticed that your discharge date was January 7th, so I was kind of wondering where that fit in things. Now, when you got back over to the States, where did you land?
London, New York.
Okay. And did you come in during the day? Could you see the Statue of Liberty when you came in, or?
I think we did, yes.
Okay. And then where did you go from there?
Hmm.
Did they take you to a camp first to get processed, or?
I think that they did, or did he? I'm not sure.
Mhm.
I can't remember that at all.
Okay. And then did you head straight home after that?
Wasn't too long. Moved us right on over and came over and camped to Camp Atterbury, Indiana.
Mm-hmm. And get discharged there.
Discharged there,
All right.
and
And how did?
came right home by bus.
Okay. Took a bus home. Now, once you got back home again, did you go back to work right away, or what did you do?
No, I took a little relaxation for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back to the railroad where I left. And
Mm-hmm. And then did you?
right away, the foreman that I had there said, "Why don't you take up an apprenticeship here and become a mechanic,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to serve I think it was a 4-year plan of." So I took an apprenticeship there and
Mm-hmm.
became a mechanic. And I worked myself up and ended up as a foreman in the car department of the mechanical department of the freight car department. And I specialized in air brake foreman and Westinghouse air brakes.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that pretty well.
All right. Now, if you look back over the time that you spent in the service, how do you think that affected you? Did it change you at all as a person, or did you learn things from it?
From combat,
Yeah, well, but just from military service generally, in or out of combat.
I learned discipline and how to take orders and how to do things. And that's a very good thing. How to operate things, how things are operated,
Mm-hmm.
and things are done. Yeah, I did learn a good. I was taught me discipline and how to receive discipline, how to dish out discipline,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned quite a bit that way.
All right. Well, the whole thing makes for a good story, so I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. All right. There we are.